guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Ivy.
So, we'll start off with our weekly updates. Looks like California's not doing so well. I see that they've now shut down a bunch of shit in their state because of the COVID, and I'm a little jealous. I am a little jealous. Here in Ohio, we've got some, our cases are getting out of control, and I think that we need to shut down again.
It's risky business.
It is. It's fucking scary. And what's scarier is the people out there that aren't wearing their masks and not washing their hands and, not doing the things that they need to do in order for us to get past it. Like, it's fucking goddamn embarrassing that, like, the rest of the world is now starting to, like, get on with their lives, and here we are moving backwards because people are turning this into some fucking political bullshit that it's not, and it's like, it's really, it's really annoying and scary. How many people are just not listening to the facts and listening to the science, and, how this is some big Democratic conspiracy to overthrow Trump and some bullshit. And it's like,
yeah,
that's just really dumb. That's really dumb. I was talking to somebody today about Fauci. And do you really, it's okay if you don't. Do you really honestly know anything about Dr. Fauci?
I've heard some stuff, but I don't know the validity of it all.
Because I didn't know anything about him until I decided to go ahead and look into his background and, learn about him. Well, he comes from a family of doctors, first of all. It ran in the family. They're all medical doctors. He went and graduated from Cornell. And so it really, respected college. Fauci has a long history of all kinds of stuff. He's actually worked alongside the presidency since Reagan, and with every president. And he, had developed a whole bunch of, I won't get into the real details, but he developed a whole bunch of stuff that saved a bunch of people's lives. But he's been through everything. He's been through the AIDS epidemic. He was here for, the swine flu. He's been here for, all of it he's been here for. And now, all of a sudden, people are trying to act like he doesn't know what he's talking about, and he's, dumb, and it's like...
part of the leftist agenda.
Right, and it's like, fucking Dr. Fauci is one of the most brilliant people, probably, if not the most brilliant man that we have for medical science in the United States. There is no better person to put on the fucking coronavirus task force, or whatever the hell Trump's calling it. There really isn't. There's nobody else that would know nearly as much as he does. And they're like, well, he's backpedaled and he flip-flops. And it's like, yeah, he does. It's a new virus. Science isn't like cut and dry. It's trial and error. And,
right.
We learn new stuff. And, God forbid we change our minds when we're presented with new information. So it's been really, annoying, but he is a very impressive guy. I do highly recommend looking into some of Fauci's stuff if you're into like medical science history and stuff like that. Cause he's really done a lot. So to see him getting torn apart in the media is just, it's really, frankly, it's disturbing.
There was that, I don't know if you've seen it, but like the plandemic thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that lady was saying some like off the wall shit about like,
Fauci.
Yeah, about
she was
how
talking
evil
shit
he
about
is.
Fauci. Fauci. Listen, Fauci, if you need a gang of people.
Well, it's like it's one scientist to another, so to me that has more validity than, say, a journalist or something. But I can't remember all the specifics of it, but she was saying stuff like, I can't even remember.
I did not watch Plandemic.
I did because I was curious. Now that lady, she has done some stuff. Can't remember what because I don't remember it, but
I don't know. See, I'd heard, pretty much immediately once Plandemic came out, it was pretty easily debunked, and it was like people that I follow in the community already were like, don't waste your time. This is ridiculous.
Well, her shit was like raided by the government, and she was like detained illegally, and like they let her go, and she's still like, her talking about that stuff could get her detained again, and they have no evidence against her.
Yeah.
But they took all of her findings, they took all of her information that she had gathered from her research, and they, I guess, like, used it to their advantage versus the best of intentions for the people.
So, I mean, like, I guess it's not fair for me to go ahead and condemn it because I have not seen it. So I don't know, I can't speak on anything about it because couldn't tell you any of the people's names or anything, anything about it. For me to not know, it's just, I guess, because I've heard word of mouth that it's, not a good thing. But then again, you should never really take anything for word of mouth. And so,
well, I haven't really looked into any of that stuff because I'm not trying to go down that fucking rabbit hole.
Yeah, because it can be.
Like,
it can be.
I'd rather just wear a mask. Call it a day.
Oh, right. It's not hurting my feelings to put a mask on and wash my hands. Well, that's what I keep trying to explain to the anti-mask people is that, what? If we're wrong about the masks, okay, and they don't work and they don't do anything, the worst thing that you had to do was put a mask on to find out. Like, it's not hurting you to do it, And then on the flip side of that, if it is helping and you're fucking walking around with disregard for the health of other people, you're a piece of garbage. Like, it's, in my opinion. But that's coming from someone that's fucking high risk, like, it's by you not wearing a mask, you're telling me that you don't value my life at all, right. That I mean nothing. And so
it's like, whether it's the coronavirus is a conspiracy or not, the fact is that it exists. So right. It's not even so much that the coronavirus itself is a conspiracy as to what is trying to be done with the coronavirus. It's a conspiracy.
Well, some people don't think it exists at all. Some people think that's just completely fake.
That's just fucking dumb.
That's just dumb. Right. That is really dumb. So people are like, oh, it's not real. Oh, the numbers are inflated. The numbers are this. The numbers are that. And it's like, I don't see them being inflated. I can see how people are confused because I actually watch the cases on a daily basis for Ohio specifically. And there is a discrepancy between what the Ohio dashboard, the website reports, and what the CDC reports. And then there's a discrepancy between not just what the state is reporting, but what every individual county is reporting. And so somebody somewhere is fucking these numbers up, and I do know that. But it's like, you know what? But I'd rather proceed with caution and take the bigger number and, as if it's fact, because to believe that it's some type of fucking political agenda is just ridiculous. Right. That just doesn't even make any sense.
It's like, where was all this outrage with the fucking Ebola and swine flu and the bird flu?
But that's what people say, why don't we shut down during those things? But that's because it wasn't nearly as contagious. That's because it was contained from the get-go. And then,
And people in fucking China and shit were wearing masks.
Yeah. Well, they always pretty much have been. Well, that's what people say. If masks wouldn't work, then how come China has cases at all? Because they always wear masks because they're pollution. And it's like, okay, sure. And maybe China's probably lying about their number. I think they're lying about their numbers. But, like, look at their numbers and look at our numbers. Like, we are number one. I mean, we are number one in the world for cases. Fucking far beyond number one. We have exceeded and blown away. Nobody will ever catch up to us at this rate. And, it's like, but who cares? Who gives a fuck about what China's doing? Who gives a fuck about where the virus came from at the moment? Like, who cares about those things? Let's figure out how to contain it, first of all. Let's figure out how to get this back into some type of control so that way we can start moving forward with our lives. And then we can dig deep, and then we can figure out why and what and how and all of that. I mean, that's just, my personal opinion. Am I afraid of it? No, not really. Because, from the sounds of it, I have equal chances of dying if I get coronavirus or if I get the flu or if I get, for me personally in my health, I'm still pretty high risk for whatever.
But nobody wants to fucking get the flu.
Right, nobody wants to get the flu, whether you're going to die or not from it.
Who wants to get sick?
Nobody wants to be fucking sick.
Unless you don't want to go to work.
Right, nobody wants to be fucking... Even then, girl, if you're going to take a day off work, you don't want it to have to be a sick day. You want it to be a day that you drank too much the night before. Right. Or you're doing something that
pretend to be sick.
Right. But yeah, so it's like, I'm not afraid of it, but at the same time, I'm going to be pretty pissed off if I die from coronavirus. Like, if that's what takes me out of all this shit that I've been through, if it's fucking coronavirus, I'm going to be so upset. So, I got too much to prove to the world before I go. So, but on that note, I decided to, we did the poll this week, and we asked you guys what kind of topic you wanted us to do for the podcast, what you want to hear us talk about, and not surprisingly, you guys voted on cryptozoology. So, I was talking, and, we were playing with the idea of doing specific creatures and things like that, but then it kind of, dawned on us that we don't have just a general episode about cryptozoology itself. So, what it is, what's classified as cryptozoology, what kind of species we're dealing with and such like that. So we figured we would go more in depth with all that and kind of explain it. Of course, we're going to tell some little one-off stories along the way, so you'll get to learn about plenty of creatures. I think it'll be a fun idea. And then, alongside the podcast here soon, and I know I keep saying this, and I know I keep shilling my shit, but, at some point I will have a YouTube channel, and I will have a series dedicated to cryptozoology and the many different creepy creatures that it covers. So, what is cryptozoology? I myself am a cryptozoologist. Cryptozoology covers basically animals that we don't, in the simplest terms, that we don't have on the books. So they're Fortean creatures. What does Fortean mean? Fortean is like anything that, Fortean covers the paranormal, the unexplained, mysteries, things like that. So when we're talking about Fortean creatures, we're talking more of an animal species. So cryptozoology can cover anything from like stuff that people have reportedly seen, sightings of a creature that we see usually over and over again by multiple accounts, to where people see it, so it must be real. However, we don't have any physical evidence that it exists. Cryptozoology covers animals that we believed were extinct, but no longer are. Stuff like that. Just anything that we don't have set aside a name for in our typical animal kingdom. So you have anything as bizarre as, something fucking weird like Mothman, who's, half bird, half man thing. Just some type of flying humanoid is a cryptozoology. Okay, go ahead.
What if, we know a pterodactyl has existed at some point.
Right.
Some people might argue that dinosaurs never existed, but whatever.
No, that's just okay. Yeah.
Right. So what if there was one that just flew across the sky, and 5 people seen it, and they're like, "Oh my god, there's a pterodactyl." Would that be considered?
Yes, that would be considered a type of some type of realm of study within cryptozoology. So that is one of the things.
Because it was extinct at one point,
right?
And then
resighted. And then now it's here. So that is one thing. Pterodactyls are a thing that people do claim to see, and that they say still exist to this day. So they are
chickens. Now. Oh, and you know how I sent you that picture of the chicken on the fence?
Yeah.
You know what its name is?
What?
Nugget.
Oh, really?
Chicken Nugget.
Is it? It's a hen, right? So they have.
It's a she.
They have.
She just started laying eggs.
So they have her for eggs. They don't slaughter them, do they? Mm-hmm. They're all hens.
Mm-hmm.
Or they just
there's a boy and a girl.
Well, you'd be happy together. Nugget. What's the boy's name?
I don't know. I didn't ask.
Ivy has neighbors that has chickens. I'm jealous. I love chickens.
Well, I didn't even realize it until at least 6-7 months of me living with my roommates. I was like,
you don't hear them?
The neighbors have a chicken? And they're like, yeah, they got 2. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. And then today I see it on the fence. What are you on the fence about, sis?
She's considering. She's like, I don't know about this guy. We've been seeing each other for a while. That's funny. How'd she get up there? She just flapped and jumped. Aren't they worried that she's gonna jump the fence?
Well, she actually has gone out into the road before, apparently, because I told her.
She was trying to cross the road. Right. Why do you think she was crossing the road?
Girl, I don't even know.
To get to the other side. What? So wait a minute. So they're free roam. They live in the backyard, and they're free roaming.
Well, they have a house.
They have a house, but
and they lock them up at night.
Oh, well, at least they lock them up at night.
Yeah.
So okay, so the chickens.
But they have 3 dogs too. I'm surprised dogs haven't tried to get the chickens.
Do they like the chickens?
I mean, they play with it. And the owners will like yell at the dogs. I think they're worried that one day. And they also got a golf cart. I don't know what.
Girl,
these neighbors are so weird. They used to have this like whole open yard, and then they like
filled with chickens and golf carts.
Ripped everything up, and now there's like, well, there was an abandoned house that they bought the land, tore down the house, and extended their yard. But now they have like 4 yards. It's all like fenced in, all weird.
Which like I've kind of seen people do that, but like they'll usually do that because like they'll have like a yard just for the dogs.
Yeah.
And then like they'll have like their social
a yard just for the chickens.
Just for the chickens, yeah. Wow, are they gonna get more chickens?
I don't know. Probably not. I mean, what do they need them for?
Just because you can. I don't know.
I
wonder how many you're allowed to have.
I'd have a bunch of chickens just so I could go outside every day. Like, look at all these chickens.
You should get a chicken. You're obviously getting it pretty cheap.
I saw a skunk too.
Oh no.
It was cute. Well, it came like up the stairs and then like the patio stairs, and then it seen me sitting in the chair and it waddled away. And I thought it was a cat at first. I was like, what cat was that? Because there's like 10 outside cats. And I look at it and it's wobbling through the garden. But then the kittens that the cats had, there's so many. Well, there's only 3 kittens, but they were out playing on the side, and that's where the skunk was going. I'm like, oh my god, these kittens are going to get sprayed. And so, like, I didn't realize it, but one was, like, on the porch, and the skunk went around the corner, and, like, so when I got up to go, like, look where the skunk was, I seen the cat, and it jumped down, and it was behind the skunk, and its tail went up, and I was like, oh my god. And it didn't spray him. At least while I was out there. And then I went back outside later and I smelled skunk spray. So I was like, oh, I hope I didn't get the cats.
Someone got hit. Skunks are one of the sweetest animals. They really are. There's a place that I go to locally. It's called Idle Hour Ranch. And it's actually fucking amazing. This man and his wife, they have this house and they happen to have all these different exotic animals as pets. Okay? So what they do is they open this up to the public. They'll let you come in. Usually they're only open on weekends. And you can go around and you could pet all of their animals. Like, you're really up close and personal with these animals. It's kind of like a zoo, but it's like an exotic petting zoo. Kind of fucked up because it sounds like what I'm describing is like Tiger King. It's similar. It is. But they don't buy the animals. They're all rescues. And so so basically they're a sanctuary at this point. But they had a skunk. And, oh my gosh, it was my favorite. He was so sweet. He would just rub his little face against my hand, and he would, like, he would just run back and forth. He was all playful. He was just so fucking sweet. His name was Delavan. And then I went back the next year. I go every year, but they're only open during the, between the summer and the fall. And I went back the next year, and he died. He was dead. And, you know,
they used to sell skunks at Fetch.
Did they really? They're so sweet. Well, somebody locally, because I do animal rescue, somebody locally, their pet skunk got outside and they were looking for it, and it's like, man, that's a really shitty situation, because like if somebody sees a skunk, they're not gonna like try to call it to them, right? They're gonna go in the house. You know, they ended up finding their pet skunk. That's good. But yeah, so it worked out. But they are actually very, very sweet. I would not mind having one, but they haven't gotten a new skunk yet, because again, they're a rescue, so they don't just go out and purchase these pets. But
you know what another like really sweet animal is that's like not common?
What?
A turkey.
Really? Turkeys are sweet.
They come up and they'll hug you, and they like lay their necks on you. There's like, it was some like, vegan video of like, like animals have feelings or whatever. And it was like this person that rescued turkeys, and they would like come up and give her hugs and everything. Like, it's cute.
Oh, well, I think any animal could be that way as long as you,
since,
form some type of good bond with it.
Right. And since birds are related to pterodactyls, do you think pterodactyls could be sweet? Or do you think they'd like come down and scoop a human up?
I think they could be. And wouldn't that be the fucking shit if you befriended a goddamn pterodactyl? Like, that would be amazing.
Like an Avatar, like you just like connect your hair to its
yeah. So that is one story that I like. So yeah, I mean, getting back onto cryptozoology, and just kind of some of the things. So one of those stories, it's not a pterodactyl, but it is a giant bird. Those are my favorites. Okay, so I guess I'll start there. As a cryptozoologist, what types of things would I like to discover, and or at least be able to get my eye on, to know for myself that it exists? Because that's the thing. I'm not really like, yes, of course, I do want to make some big breakthrough discovery one day, but I'm not doing that to change the world. It is a part of it, but for the most part, I'm really selfish, guys. I'm doing it for me. I want to know, with no uncertain terms, that these things are real. And so I want to see them with my own eyes. So my favorites are anything that swims and anything that flies, basically. And so, that being said, the Thunderbird is one of my favorites. And, thinking of these big, huge, giant birds out there, and pterodactyls being in that same category, it's just so fascinating.
So is the Thunderbird card named after?
Well, the Thunderbird is an old, in America, we call it the Thunderbird because it's a Native American legend.
Oh, see, I've never looked into it. So
Quetzalcoatl, they call it too, or the Thunderbird. Yeah, they control the storms and stuff.
Yeah.
They control the sky, and so they're basically guides of the sky. So yes, the Thunderbird, is named after not the cryptid Thunderbird, but the Native American, Thunderbird. But
so what do the Native Americans call like that type of being?
Animal. Well, I believe Quetzalcoatl is the god. Is the name of the actual god itself.
So it's a god,
right?
That's what they consider. Okay.
Well, all of those things they consider some type of.
Well, I just didn't know because it was like you never know.
A specific,
it could be something different entirely.
And they could mean very many, many things depending on what tribe you're talking about.
Right.
And then of course we're talking culturally just across the world in general, because it's not just America that has had these sightings. It's just. That's what we're most familiar with, because, we're most familiar with the Native American culture because we live here, so that's what we call it.
And even still, we're not familiar.
Right, even still, we don't know everything. But, that's what we know. Okay, so the Thunderbird is the story that got me, that's my one thing. If I were going to make a big discovery, the story that really gets me interested and got me interested in this is that there's a fabled, they call it the Thunderbird photograph, the lost Thunderbird photograph, and there is supposedly a picture out there that's very clear, and it is 5 men standing in front of a bird that they have nailed to a barn, and the bird is much larger than they are, and of course the legend is that they went out and they shot it, and that would be huge news. I mean, that would be a big proof, that these things are real. And so, if we had that, of course, there'd still be naysayers and whatever, but for the cryptozoology community, it would be a big breakthrough. And people have seen this picture, okay? Tons of people have come out and said that I know exactly what you're talking about. I saw that picture. It was in this book. Let me show you. They pull out the book, and it's not there. Anywhere. It's weird. There's people that could explain it. And actually, that wasn't a thing when I got really into this. The Mandela effect wasn't a thing, and so that could explain it. That could be one of the earliest instances of that. But there's people that have come out and said, my great uncle's brother was the one that shot that bird. We have that family photo. I have it. Let me go get it for you. And they go and look for it, and it's not there. And so nobody has been able to recover this famous photograph. Now, so many people have said that they've seen it. They know they've seen it. And there have been fakes. There's been a lot of duplicates. One picture that was going around the internet for a long time was a picture of some type of soldiers standing in front of, and it was laying on the ground, standing in front of something. You might have seen it, in front of a pterodactyl. And it's huge. And it looks great. It does. It looks very realistic. But it was actually a promotion for the show Twin Peaks. So it wasn't real, and there's other ones too. So that was one of the first big things that got me into the mystery of the Thunderbird. I like a good challenge, and so I'm like, oh gosh, if I could see that photograph, like, yes, if I could present it to the rest of the world, that would be huge. But if I want to see it. I want to see it with my own eyes and say that this is real.
That's fair.
And, at the very least, and if it disappears from my hands right then and there because nobody else is supposed to know, fine. I'll take it. I just want to see it. And then another story that came out, it was a child and his mother and whatever were outside. This was, I believe, in the 60s or the 70s. It's been a while. I'd have to really look into it. But they were outside, and her child is, I believe, a 10-year-old boy. So not a baby, not a kid. And then the neighbors were outside. It was back in the day before, TV and internet. And all the neighbors watched as this giant fucking bird came and swooped down and tried to pick the child up and take it. And, tried to fly off with it. Now, the bird struggled, which means that if this was a 10-year-old boy, the fact that the bird was even able to pick this child up off the ground means that it had to be fucking massive. And so everybody saw this happen. People were panicking, trying to get the bird to leave the boy alone. The bird flies up onto this big, huge pine tree that was like, I don't know, some crazy, it was huge. And then I believe they say another bird of equal size joined it, and then they both flew off together and didn't come back. And this was an entire neighborhood of people that saw this event happen. And so, were they all in on it? Why would the whole neighborhood come together and make up this weird story about some bird trying to carry off one of the children? It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. It would be one thing if it was like a story they told their kids of why they shouldn't wander the streets alone or something, but...
Right, but this was a child in his backyard with everybody there. It didn't make any sense that all these people saw it. They all said it looked very similar to like a condor, and condors are very large. They have, this big old wingspan, but they're not that large. And they're not big enough to be able to pick up a human child and fly off with it. Now, granted, again, the bird did struggle, but still, this was a brave motherfucker. This is a big, brave bird. It wasn't scared. So, that's one of my things, and maybe it's fitting as to why I'm, working on a documentary about the Mothman, because, it's just one of those bird-like creatures, and it's fascinating to me, because if there's going to be creatures out there that we can't really prove exist, it's going to be ones that fly, and it's going to be ones that swim. But I think the reason for that is because the ones that can swim and the ones that can fly have more hiding spaces. We don't primarily occupy the water, and we don't primarily occupy the sky. We primarily occupy the earth, which is why it's hard for a lot of things to hide from us that are walking amongst us. Not that there isn't, but I think that there's a lot more unknown in those two areas of the world, because it's not places that we live in every day, and we're there every day, and, so it makes sense to me.
You can't just take a stroll through the ocean. Mm-hmm. Or walk on the fucking clouds.
Right.
We do have a park called Cloud Park, but it's not in the clouds.
But that's one thing that I'm always looking. Every time I go to Point Pleasant, I'm not looking in the woods, which is Bigfoot there too, so I probably should be. But I'm not looking in the woods. I'm not looking in the roads. I'm watching the skies. I'm watching the highest points of the mountaintops to see if I can see anything, because those are places that you and I can't just go and get to easily. And they can, because they have the capability to do that, So, those are my personal, some of my personal favorites. I will get teary-eyed. Like, I will see a new piece of evidence. It is so weird for me. It's such a surreal experience that, I just know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, because, like I said, I will break out in full-blown tears when there's a significant piece of evidence brought to my attention. It's not even proof. Like, it's not even it's not proving the existence of these things. It's just getting that much closer to understanding it, to being able to, process it and things like that. Now, it's not like I don't like other areas of the weird. Ghosts, they're not cryptids. That's not cryptozoology. Aliens are not cryptozoology. There is a gray area between aliens and cryptozoology. There could be, depending on what you believe in and what you're following. But for the most part, like, the Roswell incident doesn't have anything that's Fortean, but that's not cryptozoology. Cryptozoology, again, is more the animals. And, what exists out there. And then, so like we were talking about, you were talking about, a pterodactyl or whatever. Well, there is a big one in the, one of the main ones that represent an endangered species coming back to life is the Tasmanian tiger. Now, they strictly exist in Tasmania. But we actually hunted them to extinction as humans. And it was pretty recently. It was like the 1930s or something like that we hunted them to extinction. Now, the Tasmanian tiger, if you have not seen it, and I'll show you the video later, because they are very interesting creatures. They walk on 4 legs, but they're a marsupial. So they're, a kangaroo. But they walk on 4 legs. They have these really odd-shaped long tails. They've got these huge mouths. Like, their snouts are very long, but these huge mouths, and they're stripes. They have stripes on them. So they're kind of almost like big cats, but they're not. But they're, very similar. And,
did you know kangaroos can't hop backwards?
I did not know that. Why is that? Just the structure of their feet? They'd fall?
I guess so.
They try and they're just like, oh, fuck that.
Have you ever seen that video of the kangaroos, like, fighting? Like, it's just like, I don't know, like some random outside cafe. They're, like, falling all over each other.
Somebody's in the background, world star!
Yeah.
Kangaroos is so weird. They're such an odd animal. They're sweet, though, too.
Like, I mean, if we couldn't prove that a kangaroo exists, like, if nobody, like, you could go out and see one.
Yeah.
That could be considered a fucking cryptid because...
It could.
That's fucking weird.
It sounds bizarre.
You tell them, like, oh, it's got a pocket on its belly that it keeps its babies in. Like, what?
What are you talking about? Hops around. What?
It's and it
boxing.
Boxes.
Yes, it's boxing skills are magnificent. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It would sound very bizarre. The giraffe. The giraffe is one that I like to use as an example because we did not always classify them as an animal. And so it's like the first time someone saw a giraffe, they come back and they're like, oh my god, I saw this thing and it's spotted and it looks like a camel, except its neck is like 9 feet long. And so like that sounds fucking bizarre. Like that sounds so weird. But we know they exist. They're real. So, I mean, that's the best way that I explain that to people. But anyway, back to the Tasmanian tiger, what I was saying was that they, they're extinct, but people have seen them. There was actually, one of the most recent photographs of it was back in, like, I think 2017. And there's just, I mean, I've seen the picture, and of course, there's always those people, there's always skeptics, but there's no way that it's anything but a Tasmanian tiger. And, like, in the local areas, it's pretty much known that these things are still around. But we haven't been able to recover a body. We can't say...
There's so few of them.
For sure, right. We can't say for sure that it is. And so, but it is really fascinating, because we do have stuff like that.
Well, I'm pretty sure when they classify something as extinct, it doesn't actually mean it doesn't exist anymore. I think it just means that it is beyond being able to... like recreate enough to be a full species again.
I can't say yes or no if that's factual, but I think it's because we don't have a tracker on every single animal that exists on the planet. So we just go we do basic. I think extinction for us means that it doesn't exist, or like you said, it probably is so dwindled down that they're not going to recreate. Like there's only 2 of them that we know that exist anymore, and maybe they're past that prime of being able to reproduce. So they'll never have babies. And so even though we have 2 more that are still alive, they're dead after those 2 die, But, yeah, I mean, that's basically the guidelines for it. Another thing that's kind of a fun, more realistic area of cryptozoology is animals that are displaced. So in Ohio, in Columbus, actually... a couple of years ago, I think it was like 2010, somebody caught footage on their trail cam of a fucking zebra. Yeah. Walking around in their woods. And, zebras aren't native to USA, America. They're not Ohio, Columbus. Right. They're not native to us. So that's pretty bizarre to have a zebra just walking around. So displaced animals are kind of a thing. And so, they kind of become an enigma because then, of course, when they don't belong here, we don't want them to stay here. And then usually when they're here in our areas where they don't clearly, like a zebra didn't swim across the ocean just to come to Columbus, Ohio. Somebody probably dumped it. And so, you kind of want to figure out the who and the why, and you want to figure out where it belongs and put it somewhere where it's going to thrive. A good example of that are the Burmese pythons in the Everglades. They are not native to Florida, but so many people have gotten them as pets, and they end up being displaced because they get so goddamn big that people can't take care of them properly as pets and have dumped them. So they were originally a displaced species, and then they ended up taking over the area, and now they're a problem in the area because they don't belong in that natural environment. So they've thrown off the food chain of what they should have. But now, because it lives there, because there's such a population there, it has become kind of a native species. So it's gone from cryptozoology to just zoology at that point. But that is another interesting thing that we have. I know somebody reported that they had seen a cougar up the street here on Bigger Road.
It was a jaguar that was spotted in Trotwood when
that guy released all his animals. Yeah, there was a bunch of really in Trotwood.
I'm pretty sure it was Trotwood.
That couldn't have been from that guy. Maybe somebody got rid of theirs, but that Zanesville is far. That's real far.
It happened to occur at the same time.
Right.
So I don't know if they ever figured it out.
Yeah.
It was definitely spotted.
Well, speaking of chickens, there was a chicken a couple years ago in Delco Park. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And it took them days to catch this chicken. It was in the local park. So, that's technically, I guess chickens could be considered, native here. I don't think we have wild chickens, but because we have so many, it's not that unusual. But that would still be within the realm of cryptozoology. It would be displaced animals. And so, that is something that does occur. Or we'll have like maybe we used to have an active, species, an active reptile species, but maybe we've killed them off in that specific area, so they shouldn't live there anymore, but then they do. But yeah, that's kind of the more boring part of it, And then of course we've got things like, the fabled jackalope, the bunny rabbit with the antlers, which I think that just started because it was so easy to taxidermy, fucking antlers onto a bunny, a jackrabbit, and make it look like it was something else. That is another thing, the gaffes that they make. And well, we know, at least I know, I've gotten the shelf and I've been looking for taxidermied stuff to put on it, which, girl, I know you saw that mouse, honey.
That's cute.
I've been really into the mice that do stuff. Little taxidermy mice that are doing little scenes and things. But there's all kinds of stuff. Like, I've been considering buying this mermaid skeleton. Is it real? No, it's not real. It's a taxidermied work of art, but it is legit bones put together. It's just not real. The actual thing itself, what it makes up at the end, is not what it is. And so some of the legends do come from stuff like that. The Fiji mermaid is a big one. Where they just took the torso and head of a monkey and they put it onto the bottom half of a fish, and it looks good and it's believable, but there's nothing like that exists out there. It's not real. It's not a real animal. So that's kind of as far as we know. But that one specifically is not. that one is not. Could it exist? Sure, but that one, So it's like and that is a weird. They're kind of fun. I enjoy them because it is kind of a work of art. But then it does kind of hurt the community itself, because when you have this fake evidence, it just degrades the science a lot. And that's hard. It is hard. Like, that's the weird thing. When you tell somebody that you're a monster hunter and, you're out to prove the existence of Bigfoot and, like, monsters and, or just me. I tell people I'm working on a Mothman documentary. It sounds insane. It does. And I'll tell you what. I have been getting more and more involved with the Fortean community, and we all have the same sense of relief when we find each other and that other person is not a complete fucking psycho. Like, most of these people, they're scary.
Nuts.
They're crazy. Yes, they've got their tinfoil hats, and it's just, it's scary. So, it is hard to find others that take it seriously, that take it as an actual science, rather than people that, they already think that, there's a tracking device in their brain, and, things like that. Which I try, I'm very open, obviously. Again, I'm a fucking monster hunter for a living. But, I try to stay open to the possibility of people's, things. But you can just kind of tell. You can kind of tell who's crazy and who's not, when they start telling you their stories and things like that. You can also kind of tell the difference between people that are telling you their stories and that are liars. I've had people send me emails, and, some of them I'm just like, okay, this is just somebody trying to get their 15 minutes of fame. And you kind of walk into it skeptical with every single person that you meet. And so,
well, you kind of have to.
You have to, yeah, you have to. So you gotta keep an open mind, but at the same time, you have to stay within the realm of possibility. And all of us as investigators, we have different realms of possibility, and I respect that as well. But I know where my boundaries are, and you just kind of know, you know the bullshit stories from the real ones, and the crazies from things that are legitimate. So. It's just one of those things. But yeah, I mean, as far as, cryptozoology goes, it is a science, and it is, very much a very real thing that is important for us to be able to expand and understand our species better. Just our general biology, works. Well, just like we, talked about extensively about the Bigfoot episode. Bigfoot does exist. He's out there. And what is he? Is he a missing link between us? It's important for us to know if we're able to breed with interspecies. That's important for us to know. And, we've kind of proven with other things that we can. Like a liger is very much a type of blur between zoology and cryptozoology. Because science says it shouldn't exist. But it does, right. And it is able to, because we're not supposed to be able to breed with, with interspecies. But we can. Mules are also kind of on that gray area. Mule is a mix between a horse and a donkey, and nobody ever really puts any thought into it. But in all reality, they shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be possible for us to have them. And then on top of that, it was a big thing that we found out that ligers could breed. And actually, it was Joe Exotic, believe it or not, that found out that they could in fact breed. But we were led to believe that because of their weird genetics anyway, that they would be, they were impotent, and they were sterile. They weren't able to have babies, but they were. And he found that out. And so, I mean, that's just a whole other, science to it. So, I mean, it is a mix of multiple things that, come together to make this one big branch. So it's not all just, Bigfoot and Nessie. Like, it's not, it's not just the Mothman. It's not, these weird, it's not these, it's not unicorns, it's a bigger picture. I mean, it's just the missing science of zoology and of biology and, studying the animal kingdom and, things like that. So it's, it's fun. It's a lot of fun because you get that taste of studying the unknown while also being able to have that breakthrough of the known, to make it that way. And so it can be a lot of fun. But it's not that far off. I get skeptics all the time that are like, oh, whatever, that shit's not real, this, that, and the other. You hear that. There's a mixed opinion on Bigfoot. There's a lot of people that'll publicly come out and say that it's not real. Well, we already know that it is, so. Right, we already know that it is, so you can't tell me otherwise. But we do have other things. In my case, I'm kind of intermingling cryptozoology with Fortean studies. Because as you well know, I'm working on this Mothman documentary, and as I've kind of explained before, Mothman to me is a type of exception that blurs the line between Fortean and cryptozoology, because I believe that it is a little bit of both. Then we're talking about I won't get into it too much, but then we're talking about the ultra terrestrials, and we're talking about different dimensions, and we're talking about things like that. Is it a species of some sort? Yes, I believe it is. I believe it's a biological species. Is it a species that is within our realm of possibility to completely understand? No, I don't think so. I don't think it is. But I do now believe that it is some type of something. I mean, it's something biological for sure. But, like I said, you can see where it easily makes that gray area, what's alien and what's a creature. The Flatwoods Monster. The Flatwoods Monster is a great example. It was just a weird one-off sighting in the woods somewhere. It seems to be alien in nature, but again, it's biological because it's something that exists. It's something people could see. It's something that they knew was there. And then it took off, but it came in a spaceship. So it's like, where's the difference? Where do you draw the line? I think with cryptozoology, most of the time, that's more the study of things that live here, that they call our planet their home. Whereas when you're talking about Fortean studies and mingling the two, you're still talking, again, about a biological creature, but not one that necessarily calls our planet its home. And then that's something entirely different. That makes it something new, and that makes it something bigger than just us. So, that's where my job is in here. Like, of course, I'm always gonna want to see the Thunderbird photograph. I want to go live on Lake Okanagan and watch for Ogopogo, because I think that's one of the most likely to exist of the sea monsters. I got my own little dreams and things like that, and I'd be happy. Like if I was able to, hit one of these milestones, if I was able to again see something, and I've never seen a creature that I couldn't explain. I've had weird experiences. I've had otherworldly experiences. I had this one crazy story, and maybe when we talk about aliens again, I'll tell it. But, I've had weird things happen, but I've never seen a biological creature that I couldn't explain. The closest I got was I saw a huge-ass bird, not quite as huge as what I'm talking about in terms of Thunderbirds, fly across, an old road in the woods in the middle of the night at some point. But I think it was just like an owl or something. I wouldn't go as far as to call it something really that was, a cryptid or anything like that. But I've never had one of those experiences. And when I do have one, I know that at that point in my life, I will be fulfilled. Does that mean I'm going to stop studying? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I think that would give me a drive to continue to go. I'd be like, well, now I know this shit is real, and I would probably fixate on whatever it was I saw. If it was Bigfoot, it'd be Bigfoot. Whatever it was, that's what I would focus on. From there, I would have to, I don't know. There's just, I think it would drive me to do it even more, but I think emotionally with what I feel like I've accomplished, I would feel like I've finished my work. I mean, for the most part. But then I guess I'd set bigger goals at that point. But I haven't had any of those weird experiences, so, but that's, that's basically from the mind of from the mind and the mouth of a cryptozoologist. You guys, heard it here. Do you have any questions about anything?
Not really. Yeah. I mean, I've listened to you enough from just talking to you and hanging out with you to, I don't necessarily retain all the information, but I have a general understanding, because that's a lot to retain.
It is.
I don't even know how you do it.
Because there's so many different areas of it, and so it is. It is a lot, and I forget a lot. I mention things like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and things like that all the time. But that's because that's what people know. People know those. People hear those. And they're like, oh, I know that. Oh, I know that one. That's Bigfoot. I know that's Nessie. But then we don't talk about things like the Wampus Cat. We don't talk about the fucking Beast of Bray Road. We don't. Or the Tooth. the Fresno Nightcrawlers.
The
walking pants. And that's because not a lot of people know about those, so, but it's I know about them, but I do forget, there's a lot of cases that I do forget, and there's, some things tend to stick out more than others. Some things are more plausible than others, but we do have the weird shit like the walking pants, and that's just so bizarre and strange. The Fresno Nightcrawlers is so weird And what the fuck is
so
that?
Cute.
They're scary.
No, they're
You're
not.
telling me if you saw that in the middle of the night, you wouldn't be scared?
No, I'd be like, oh, you're just so cute.
Because I don't know if they're aliens or not, and bitch, I'm afraid of aliens.
Well, I mean, if you're afraid of aliens, then.
And I don't know if they're considered. I mean, they could be alien or they could be a cryptid. I don't really know. They're kind of fall in that gray area.
It could be a ghost.
It could be.
Somebody lost their upper half, and it's just the ghost of their bottom half.
Walking around. They're so strange. The giant tooth, my daughter calls them. Yeah, they're but there are these weird, one-off sightings or these weird one-off stories that you hear about, and like, again, I've received all kinds of weird stuff, and it's just from different people reporting, and I love it. I love to hear about the stories because. It's like the thing is that some of the shit that people tell you, like, of course there are people out there that give you the fake stories just to get that 5 seconds of fame or whatever, but some of the stuff that people tell you, it's so out there and it's so bizarre that they just couldn't have made that shit up. I mean, it's just, they just couldn't have. Where do they get this stuff from? And so, and maybe one day I'll go through and kind of read some of the stories and stuff, but yeah, some of it is just, it's like, that's just not... The melonheads. The melonheads is another one. That was something that I saw. Do you even know about the melonheads? They're like these kids that roam the woods, and they're reported in Ohio, they're reported in Connecticut, Michigan.
Is it like the kids with the black eyes?
Black-eyed children? Kind of. These ones have, like, giant heads. And so, this legend that we have in Ohio is that it was this mad scientist adopted these children and started experimenting on them and made them have these huge ass heads. The kids got upset, burned the surgeon's house to the ground, and now they live in the woods, not really knowing their place in the world. And the different
Yo Bickethead.
Yeah, so yeah.
The surgeon's name was Dr. Bickethead.
Dr. Bickethead. Probably.
Yo, Bicket boy.
We should spread that around. But yeah, so but they it's just kids that dwell in the woods with these large ass weird looking heads, and so but they're considered, is that paranormal? Is that cryptid? It's again, it's one of those things. It's a gray area. It's like so many people have reported seeing these things, these kids, but we can't prove that they exist. So. What do we do with that information? We just, we hang on to it and we study it, and if we find evidence for it, then of course we'll move forward with, for what it is. But I think that's the fun in cryptozoology, especially being somebody that has pretty bad ADHD, is that if I get bored of one subject, I can just move on to the next. It's all within the same realm of study, but it's also different that it gives me an outlet to be able to go wherever I want with it. And I like that, I think I do. I mean, of course, that's coming from the people that's a cryptozoologist, a Freudian investigator, a horror hostess, a podcaster, and a model. So, I think I've proven that I like my career to be multifaceted.
Well, I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah.
I mean...
Keeps it interesting.
It's
keeps
like
it fresh.
People that were actors for so long, they get bored with it, and then what do? They try to sing, and then it just doesn't work. It's like you gotta do it all from the get-go.
They'll get into special effects makeup, they'll become a director, they do all this other
and sometimes it works,
stuff.
Sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
If you do it all at once, or close to each other, then it at least kind of makes sense. Yeah. But it was even Lady Gaga going to acting. Yeah, she was great at it, but it's like, oh god, Lady Gaga's gonna act. It was one of those things.
Because everybody does that, yeah.
And then Lindsay Lohan, having music, which I like Lindsay Lohan's music, but whatever.
Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, you definitely. I mean, I like to be able to have the ability to keep it interesting, because I like all of those things, and those are all big areas of interest in my own life, and so yes, I'd like to be able to express them, and I will. Just because I can sit here and talk your ear off about all these scientific things, doesn't mean that I'm against making money to show you my boobies, my boobies, so it doesn't. I don't feel like any of my career choices take away from the other. That's for sure. I feel like if anything, it just highlights it even more. It's like, okay, you know, I'm interesting enough to listen to, but I'm also nice enough to look at. So it works. It worked in my favor. I was born blessed. So, you know, but anyway, yeah, as far as my cryptozoology goes, I mean, that's probably my number one for me. That is the career I would like to most succeed at. If I only had to choose one and I could only pick one thing for the rest of my life to do, it would be to hunt monsters. I love it.
Now, is that if there's a guarantee that it will take off, or a guarantee that it'll take off, or it could just take off, or it could just not?
Well, that would,
you still choose that one?
I guess that would be like if, I guess what I mean with if I had to choose would be, you know, Satan presents himself and goes, I will make you succeed in any of these things, but you only have to pick one. Then that's the one thing I would pick. Now, as far as like succeeding in any of the areas, like say I continue doing everything, okay? Say I am, which seems to be right now kind of what's going on, say I'm more desired in the horror community. So my career is really taking off there, right? I'm doing a lot more there than I am anywhere else right now in my life. So right now, that is obviously the more successful. You know, I'm still not willing to give up this part of my life just to further pursue that career. You know, I still very much have a need to juggle all of it if I can. But if it really got in the way, like if my other career really got in the way of this and it gave me an ultimatum to where I could only pick one or the other, I'd pick cryptozoology. Still.
That's fair.
I would. You know, because that is, you know, what I love to do. But thankfully, in all of the different careers, because I'm my own boss, you know, I'm free to do it all. And, you know, that's the really beautiful thing about it, and the beautiful thing about the internet nowadays, and how things spread, how things get around, is that, you know, for the most part, there's a lot of layover with all of my fan base. So it's like the horror fans most of the time are going to be interested in like Bigfoot and shit. You know, they're gonna want that stuff. You know, the Fortean investigators may not so much be interested in the horror. I've seen a lot of them be involved in the horror community, but they're so interested in what I have to say about the area that I study with the cryptozoology that, you know, they're willing to stick around just for that, and I respect that.
Well, and I mean, it's all interesting no matter what.
Right, it all is interesting. Right, so it's not like any of them are boring topics. So it's been fun, you know. But then I have that layover where I'm working on a documentary, so the career in film helps with that other career in film. It's just that I'm working with film and reality rather than film and fantasy. And so, you know, both kind of help the other. And so, you know, as of right now where I'm at, you know, I have this TV show and I'm with a production company, and, you know, they may want to pick up the documentary for distribution.
Right.
And so, you know, that works because they know me, they know my personality, they know that people are going to be interested in what I have to say, and it's weird enough to where it could walk alongside horror. And so, you know, it's just one of those things. But yeah. Anyway. Cryptozoology. I guess if you don't have any specific questions, I guess we can go ahead and cut this off. You know, we'll definitely do more in-depth conversations about different species and things like that. Now, see, it is kind of hard to do because, like the Tasmanian tiger, unless I have an update to include in the weekly updates, I mean, we pretty much covered everything that there was to cover about that one. You know, so it would be really hard to put that into an entire podcast. It's not impossible, but, you know, especially with the way that we get off the rails. But, you know,
well, we didn't get Karen on the case this time.
We did not. You know, I was thinking about that the other day. Karen has not been around solving any of our problems. But I agree. I think we need to call Karen in on these fucking cryptids. Right. And get Karen on the cryptids. Karen and the cryptids.
And what management are Karen and the cryptids going after? Because you know she's going to
army. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Probably the U.S. government for now. And
she's
then
gonna help them, and they're interdimensional. Well, they're not interdimensional.
No, just they're biological, right? With that, she might have to contact the mothership if she's going interdimensional. she's gonna have to reach all the way out to the moon and back for her for her request.
Take me to the mothership.
They're all looking at each other like, who is this? And she's like, I'm Karen. My name's Karen. And I need to see your manager. They're like, this life form has a peculiar haircut.
Yeah.
Oh, Karen. Yeah, we definitely need to get Karen back on here. Yeah, because I was thinking about her the other day. I was like, wow, where's Karen been? She's got to solve all this shit. She's got to do.
Been busy.
She wasn't even there for the Bigfoot.
She's got a lot on her plate.
She does. She's got.
You know, we need to speak to Karen's manager.
We need to speak. Right. Manager. We need to. Yes, we need to get a hold of Karen's manager because that bitch ain't been doing her job. I'd like to file a complaint. I'm gonna need a coupon for next time, Karen.
Right. That does not expire, even if it has an expiration date. Okay. Thanks.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, so yeah, like I said, we'll definitely go into depth and we'll explore more stuff. I know Ivy has her heart set on a certain species, and we'll cover them. But as far as general cryptozoology, I think that's gonna do it for today, guys. So we'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.
Bye.